Great North Woods to the Rock Mountain Coast and streaming live in HD worldwide at foxbangor.com. More people choose Good Morning Maine.
Hello everyone. Today on Good Morning Maine, the state of Maine is mourning the loss of game warden Josh Tibbetts after he died in a plane crash. We're now learning more about what happened. Plus, state officials question the validity of a petition, and those involved will have the details coming up. And Bangor City Councilors voted to ban storing belongings on city sidewalks. We'll have the latest on that ahead. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Maine. I'm Janessa Bishop. Craig Colson is off for the day. We'll have those stories and much more coming up. And as always, we thank you for joining us. Today looks like a cloudy day with temperatures in the 50s. Let's start off this morning by getting a first check of our forecast. Devin Biggs joins us now.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Happy Wednesday. Your first weather forecast brought to you by Rogan's Memorials. Give the gift of comfort through thoughtful planning with locations in Bangor, Bucksport, and Lincoln. Alrighty, here we go. We have frost advisories and even some freeze warnings across the state, and that will last until later on this morning at around 9 a.m. Even small craft advisories along the coast as well. Meanwhile, as we do move forward this morning, we are watching some clouds that are moving in from the southwest and going toward the north and east with another area of low pressure that is currently on the way. And this will give us some opportunities for rain showers, but we will have to wait until the afternoon period for that to move in. And there it is right there tracking off towards the east at this moment in time. Meanwhile, moving forward today, Futurecast watching the clouds approaching. There is the rain this afternoon and even some rain showers lingering into the evening, some breaks at times, and we'll be watching for more rain as we head towards your Thursday. As for the gusty winds, again, we're going to be watching for gusts up to around 20 miles per hour. And again, those gusty winds continuing into the evening period too. Meanwhile, your hourly forecast moving forward, again, watching for clouds, afternoon chances for rain showers, temperatures in the 60s. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Janessa?
Thank you, Devin. We'll see you a little later on. Well, first this morning, as we mark National Police Week, a time to honor all those in law enforcement, the state of Maine is suddenly mourning the loss of one of its own. Maine game warden Josh Tibbetts died yesterday in a plane crash, and we're learning more about exactly what happened. Our Callie Warren with the latest.
Repeat number 4, Schoolhouse Pond Road in Avon. Going to be a 911 automated crash detection.
Yeah, a little before 11 o'clock today, we got news that there was a plane crash in Franklin County and quickly learned that it was one of our game warden pilots, Josh Tibbetts, who crashed.
50-year-old Joshua Tibbetts was a New Gloucester resident, a father, and a game warden pilot. On Tuesday, he died on a solo flight over Schoolhouse Pond in Avon, a town in Franklin County near Rangeley. He was stalking fish and collecting data on that flight before an unknown cause led to his crash. It was a routine operation that officials from Fish and Wildlife described as being over typical terrain. His aircraft automatically dispatched a distress call around 11 a.m.
We often say that members of the state law enforcement put their lives on the line each day, and that is never more evident than today. This is a day we hope will never happen, we'll never see, yet sadly it happens far too often. We're grieving the loss of a dedicated public servant, colleague, and member of the Maine Warden Service.
Officials say Franklin County emergency personnel and police were the first to reach the scene, later joined by wardens. They say that the FAA is investigating. Folks from the NTSB will be coming up from Florida Wednesday to join them in that investigation, which is standard procedure in any aircraft crash.
Today's incident is a somber reminder that the daily job of Maine game wardens, as well as all of our first responders, is perilous and full of uncertainty. We have been in communication with the FAA as well as the NTSB and will be assisting them with their investigation over the upcoming days.
Tibbetts' career with the Warden Service began in 2008, and he was promoted to a pilot in 2023. In a social media post from the Warden Service in November of 2023, congratulating him on that promotion, they wrote, "Warden Tibbetts will be instrumental in law enforcement and search and rescue efforts, and will provide invaluable support for resource management, including data collection and fish stocking." End quote.
We don't recognize fully how much they put themselves at risk every day what dangerous situations they put themselves in on our behalf. The hardworking men and women of the Warden Service are guardians of our outdoor heritage. They're preserving the woods and waters and wildlife of Maine, and they're protecting hundreds of thousands of people as people explore the wilderness and experience the wonders of our state.
Law enforcement agencies across the state are joining the Warden Service in mourning this loss.
Today's crash is an absolute tragedy which will permanently change the lives of so many people forever.
Tibbets' remains were received by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Augusta. The investigation into the incident is still in its early stages. Callie Warren reporting for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
As the state grapples with the loss of Warden Tibbets, Maine law enforcement gathered in Augusta yesterday to pay tribute to past officers who made the ultimate sacrifice. Our Alex Schley with more.
Ebenezer Parker, Cumberland County Sheriff's Department. Charles E. McIntosh, Portland Police Department. Frank C. Wing, Maine State Police. Robert L. Moore, Maine Warden Service.
Patrolman Pearlie Kenny of the Westbrook Police Department became the 91st name added to the Maine Law Enforcement Officer Memorial.
When you think about the 91 people that are on the wall, they've literally given their all on behalf of our state and our community, and there is no greater sacrifice than giving your life in the line of duty.
The memorial, dedicated in 1991, has served for decades as a place of remembrance for the men and women who never made it home. At least one of the sisters of Detective Gil Landry say one of them has attended every ceremony since the memorial was established.
It's an honor because I don't want anyone to forget who Gil was and who all the other officers that have given their lives to us, for us. So I'm honored.
We miss him every day. We cherish the times that he was with us.
Their brother, who was a detective for the New Gloucester Police Department, was shot and killed in Lewiston in 1989 while investigating a child abuse case. Landry was the 7th Maine officer killed in the line of duty and one of the first honored on the memorial. Officers say the wall stands not only as a tribute, but also a reminder of the extraordinary sacrifices made by law enforcement officers across the state.
I think just having these memorials here, whether it's today or some random Tuesday in August, it should be powerful for everybody to take a look and stop by and say hello to our heroes.
In Augusta, Alex Schley for ABC7 and Fox 22 News.
Meanwhile, a former Corrections Department official was sentenced for his role in a massive kickback scheme. Gerald Merrill once served as Deputy Superintendent of the Mountain View Correctional Facility in Charleston and the Down East Correctional Facility in Machiasport. During that time, he came under suspicion for fraud. State Auditor Matt Dunlap helped investigate agency compliance with the use of the state procurement cards. He, along with the AG's office, discovered Merrill's misconduct. Dunlap says Merrill had been using his procurement card to make fake purchases to an accomplice out of state, and then the money was kicked back to Merrill. They believe he received a little over $500,000 in kickbacks. Merrill was arrested, charged, and later pleaded guilty. He was sentenced Tuesday to 10 years in prison, with all but 5 suspended for theft. Dunlap says they believe it's the biggest fraud perpetration by a state official in Maine history.
When something like this happens, it's such an incredible betrayal of the public trust, and it lowers the confidence of the public in our ability to take care of the government that we are charged with taking care of. Yep. And to me, that's the lasting damage from something like this.
Merrill must also serve a concurrent 5-year term for forgery charge, as well as 3 years probation, and pay roughly $500,000 in restitution. Officials from the Secretary of State's office questioned those involved in a citizens' initiative after challenges were filed against that initiative's petition. The initiative is an act to designate school sports participation in facilities by sex. Initially, the Secretary of State's office found that the petition efforts to be valid. A suit was filed to challenge that decision. Officials with the Secretary of State's office questioned those involved on how they gathered their signatures and whether those who were petitioners were actually qualified to be. There's no clear timeline thus far as to when a decision will come down. Democratic gubernatorial candidate Hannah Pingree announced she's been endorsed by Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey. Pingree made that announcement at the Penobscot Judicial Center in Bangor. She said she is deeply honored by AG Frey's support and understands the pivotal partnership between governors and their legal leaders. Frey said that Pingree's experience and leadership in state government make her highly qualified to lead the state. He also said the proof is in those who have already worked with Pingree.
When you want to learn about a leader, don't just ask them what they think about leadership. Ask those folks that work for them about how they lead. And to the person, every person that I've talked with that has worked for Hannah Pingree has identified that her vision and the way in which she supports her team is important. We need that in state government.
Well, in other news this morning, Bangor City Councilors voted to prohibit people from storing belongings on city sidewalks. This comes after concerns were raised about an increased number of unhoused people gathering at Bangor's Pierce Park. But the city still has a major issue to address. Where will they go now? Our Grace Blanchard with more.
All of us are in survival mode and trying to find a place that we can go, even if it means having to risk our lives to do so.
When the winter warming shelters closed in Bangor last month, many people like Jeremy Belanger and Ash Morrow found themselves sleeping on the street.
When these warming shelters were open, Bangor area shelter was full, and all these warming shelters were filled to the brim. So we literally have nowhere to go.
When the closure happened, it led many unhoused individuals to go to Bangor's Pierce Park.
Pierce Park is right next to the library, and as we know, it's like the last public space, and it was like the only option available to people, so they took it.
However, officials say it has created challenges for police and safety hazards, with people leaving their belongings on the sidewalk.
Just in the name alone, sidewalk, it's a place where people should be allowed to walk.
Monday night, the City Council voted unanimously to pass a modification to an existing sidewalk ordinance that prohibits people from storing belongings on city sidewalks.
It is not good. They're refusing to help us, yet want us off the streets.
Pressure from the community led to a recent reduction of hours at Pierce Park and more police in the area. Councilor Michael Beck says this remains a complex issue.
It's one thing to answer the question of where people can't be. I want to see us answer the question of where can we be or where can they be.
According to Councilor Beck, the modifications to the ordinance will take effect 10 days after the vote. In Bangor, Grace Blanchard, ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
The time now is 6:12. Coming up next on Good Morning Maine, a local brewery in the community is helping a state trooper and his family after a house fire. We'll have that story coming up. But first, let's take another look at our forecast. For today, mostly cloudy with a chance of showers in the afternoon, highs around 61. Overnight tonight, rain early with some clouds and fog, temperatures in the mid-40s. And for tomorrow, mostly cloudy with a chance of rain showers, highs around 63. We'll be right back.
You build more than projects. You build what communities rely on. When the job site runs on results, put Kubota to work. Backed by expert service and support from your local Kubota dealer. Right now, bring home select Kubota KX Series with 0% financing available or save up to $7,000.
Available at Doors Equipment, 1468 Outer Hammond Street, Bangor.
I was barricaded at the Capitol on January 6th. I saw it firsthand. I'm Jordan Wood. We can't go back to a broken system. I can't stand idly by as Trump rips away health care. ICE is terrorizing our streets, and billionaires buy elections. I spent my career defending democracy from election deniers and fighting corporate PACs. We need to take on Trump, beat Paul LePage, and finally deliver Medicare for all. I'm Jordan Wood. I approve this message.
You sold him a car that he didn't pay for. He said he doesn't owe you a penny.
A fishy deal pits friend against friend.
I called him up and asked him if he wanted to buy the car.
Why would you call him? Why were you selling it?
But who
Forget about her hustle. I'm talking now about your hustle.
can be believed?
You went to pick up the car to buy it.
I wasn't going to pay anything for it because it was junk.
Next, Judge Judy.
Wednesday at 5 on ABC 7.
town of Lincoln has appointed an interim town manager after the last individual to hold the position was fired less than 2 months after that assuming role. As we reported last week, former town manager Dennis Bullen was fired in a 4-3 vote by the town council. He was appointed on March 10th. At Monday evening's town council meeting, 4 councilors voted to appoint Wade Schaefer as interim manager effective immediately. Schaefer also serves as senior pastor for Swans Island Church of God, which the town says that he will continue as he assumes that other role. Meanwhile, a brewing company in the town of Brewer stepped up to help a state trooper and his family who lost everything. Mason's Brewing Company is donating a portion of their sales in support of State Trooper Greg Ramp and his family after they lost their home to a fire back in March. Ramp, his wife Natasha, their 2 kids and their pets, including Trooper Ramp's canine, made it safely out of the blaze, but are now starting over with nothing. Ramp has served with Maine State Police since 2019 and has worked as a canine handler since 2022. The time now is 6:16. After the break, U.S. President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Beijing for his meeting with leader Xi. More on that ahead. Plus, a woman from Searsport is helping people enjoy the outdoors in a bit of an unconventional way. Those stories and more straight ahead on Good Morning Maine.
What does Graham Plattner think of rural Mainers? He calls them stupid and racist. And Plattner called some Maine lobstermen drug-addicted pieces of shit. That's the real Graham Plattner. Pine Tree Results Pack is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Are you in need of remodeling your bathroom? Want to convert your tub into a safe walk-in shower? Call the experts at Bangor Bathrooms by Design now. They offer complete bathroom remodels, and from start to finish, your satisfaction is guaranteed. Call them now and save thousands. 659-6457. Enjoy that brand new bathroom you've always wanted from Bangor Bathrooms by Design. Transforming bathrooms, elevating lives.
If you've been injured in a motorcycle wreck, call 855-IRON-LAW today. Iron Horse Motorcycle Lawyers. We protect our own.
Graham Plattner blames Maine's women for getting raped because he says they get up drunk. And Plattner bragged about having a Nazi tattoo on his chest. That's the real Graham Plattner. Pine Tree Results Pack is responsible for the content of this advertising.
A woman from Searsport is helping animals and people both enjoy the Maine outdoors, one guided walking tour at a time. Our Jody Hersey explains.
The animals like to talk at Galloping Crow Farm in Searsport, especially the donkeys. The farm, which is home to several rescue donkeys, goats, dogs, and chickens, is located at the end of a dirt road. Rebecca Loveland is the owner.
When I was like 12, somewhere around that age, I had like this vision or dream of owning a farm on a hill. And you can't see it from here, but this goes uphill, and it's the vision I have from my childhood. This is it. So it's like a dream literally came true.
This spring, Loveland started Down East Donkey Walks, an hour-long outing where you could enjoy the company of one of her 4 rescues during a guided stroll through the woods on her property.
There's Cedar and Ed are kind of a pair, and then Coda and Henry. Come here.
Loveland said donkeys are a perfect walking companion.
They're just so calm. They tend to not be skittish like horses. They love attention.
The farm is open every day but Wednesdays. Those interested in booking an outing can choose one of the following. Option 1 is hanging out in the pasture. Option 2 is going on a walk. And option 3 is a combination of both.
Donkey walks are very slow. This is a lot of the walk too, is they just snack the whole time.
Loveland said Down East Donkey Walks allows people to connect, unwind, and enjoy just being in the outdoors.
So I knew there was an interest. I didn't know there would be this much interest, and it's great. I love it.
In Searsport, I'm Jody Hersey for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
And for more information, you can visit our website at foxbangor.com to find her website URL to book your Down East Donkey Walk. Well, now let's get a full look at our forecast with meteorologist Devin Biggs.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Your full weather forecast brought to you by Rogan's Memorials. Give the gift of comfort through thoughtful planning with locations in Bangor, Bucksport, and Lincoln. Alrighty, here we go. Advisories posted. We have a frost advisory and even a freeze warning up across the state. Both of these will be dropping this morning. Hopefully, you've been protecting your flowers across parts of the state as even though we're in growing season in some areas, definitely continuing to remain cold, at least as we enter spring. Wave heights are quiet for now, but we are going to be watching for increasing surf with some gusty winds, hence why we do have some small craft advisories that are in effect. Meanwhile, we are watching clouds approaching from the south and west and going towards the north and even to the east, as we are going to be watching for rain chances with this area low pressure moving in our direction. We are going to wait until the afternoon period for these to kind of move in and give us the rain chances again this afternoon into the evening period. So here's Futurecast right here. Again, we are going to be watching for the rain chances again during the afternoon period. The winds will be picking up too, and rain chances continuing into the overnight. Notice we will have some dry hours too, sprinkles and rain showers, and even through parts of Thursday, again, rain showers, locally heavy downpours possible as we head towards Thursday night and parts of your Friday. Notice it kind of stalls out in some places too, so again, locally heavy downpours, perhaps some ponding and maybe perhaps some flash flooding, not out of the question in a few spots too. I'm going to run this through parts of Saturday. That's when this will back off, and notice where the heaviest rainfall will be. It's in drought-stricken areas, but this could be too much in a short amount of time, so be ready for that. Lesser amounts of rain as you head further off towards the east. So for today, here's what we're looking at. So mostly cloudy, afternoon rain showers with highs in the low 60s, and again, that south wind at around 25 miles per hour. Later on tonight, we have mid-40s, rain early, then clouds and some fog too, maybe a few sprinkles still or light showers, and that south wind at around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Higher gusts cannot be ruled out. Low 60s for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, some more rain showers, southeast wind at around 25 miles per hour. Already moving forward, your extended forecast, rain chances continue Friday with highs in the low 60s, mostly sunny Saturday. That'll be nice. Highs in the mid-70s. Partly cloudy Sunday. A chance for rain showers. Highs remaining in the mid-70s.
Spring savings are blooming at Color Concepts. Save 20% on Benjamin Moore paints and Hunter Douglas shades for a limited time. Some exclusions apply. Visit us just off the interstate at 840 Hammond Street in Bangor.
Need a safe and caring place for your loved one during the day? At the Merchant Center Adult Day program, we provide a supportive environment where adults can enjoy companionship, engaging activities, and personalized care in a setting that feels like home. Our experienced staff is committed to meeting each person's unique needs while promoting independence, dignity, and overall well-being. Families can feel confident knowing their loved ones are in compassionate, capable hands.
You're getting ripped off. Criminals overbill Main Care. They even charge for fake services, and Janet Mills let it happen. I'm Jonathan Bush. I've built systems that stopped fraud and abuse and saved customers millions. As governor, I'll audit every program and reduce that waste and fraud. Politicians and lobbyists don't have what it takes to clean up this corruption, but I do. I'm Jonathan Bush. Let's shake up Augusta.
Webb's RV Center has a 4-acre lot with over 75 previously owned campers all on sale, plus another 4 acres of new RVs and motorhomes. Webb's RV will take anything in trade. You can buy a camper anywhere, but be sure to buy your next camper at your local neighbor. A website can't service your RV, but Webb's RV will, and they have the biggest service department in the state of Maine to help you enjoy your RV or motorhome.
So come on down, neighbor. The coffee pot's on and the pencil is sharp.
Spring savings are blooming at Color Concepts. Save 20% on Benjamin Moore paints and Hunter Douglas shades for a limited time. Some exclusions apply. Visit us just off the interstate at 840 Hammond Street in Bangor.
You're watching ABC 7 Bangor.
Now to Baltimore and criminal charges being filed for a deadly bridge collapse. Here's ABC's Hannah Battah.
2 years after the deadly collapse of Baltimore's Key Bridge, the Justice Department has filed criminal charges against the operator of the cargo ship that crashed into it, claiming the company ignored safety issues and lied to investigators. Prosecutors allege Synergy Marine failed to address long-standing problems on the Dolly. They claim the use of improper fuel pumps crippled the ship's ability to restore steering power after 2 blackouts.
The indictment alleges that if the Dolly had been using the proper fuel supply pumps, then the vessel would have regained power in time to safely navigate under the Key Bridge.
The ship slammed into a supporting column of the bridge, causing it to collapse, killing 6 construction workers who'd been filling potholes. The sole survivor clung to a piece of steel in the water after escaping his work truck through its manual windows. The indictment also claims the company and the ship's technical supervisor falsified inspection records.
If the DOJ wouldn't have found what was going on and brought these charges, we would have never seen the purposeful destruction of materials, the purposeful hiding of what really caused this tragedy.
Synergy denies the allegations, saying the NTSB identified the probable cause of the incident was a loss of electrical power due to a loose signal wire connection, a defect outside of Synergy Marine's control. The indictment comes on the same day Maryland reached a $2 billion settlement with Synergy and the owner of the ship. Hannah Battah, ABC News, New York.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Beijing today for his highly anticipated summit with leader Xi, at a restless moment for a world worried about war, trade, and artificial intelligence. The visit first occurs at a delicate moment for Trump's presidency, as his popularity at home has been weighed down by the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran and rising inflation as a consequence of that conflict. The president is seeking a win by signing deals with China to buy more American food and aircraft, saying he'll be talking with Xi about trade more than anything else. The Trump administration hopes to begin the process of establishing a board of trade with China to address differences between the countries. The board could help prevent the trade war ignited last year after Trump's tariffs hiked, an action China countered through its control of rare earth minerals. That led to a one-year truce last October. Well, Canvas says it struck a deal with the hackers behind a large-scale cyber attack. Instructure, the parent company of online learning system Canvas, said in a statement it has, quote, reached a deal with the unauthorized actor involved, end quote, in a cyber attack earlier this month. The company did not specify whether the deal involved a payment or name who was behind the attack, despite hacking groups Shiny Hunters, who conducted a small breach at Instructure last year, claiming responsibility for this month's disruption. Hackers had threatened to leak data from nearly 9,000 schools worldwide and 275 million individuals if schools failed to pay a ransom. Instructure says that breach appeared to involve student ID numbers, email addresses, names, and messages exchanged on the Canvas platform. Passwords, date of birth, government identification, or financial information does not appear to have been included. The company says the data was returned and destroyed as a part of this week's deal, but Instructure also says there's no way to know if the data was erased for good. Cyber experts say they are skeptical of the deal, suggesting a ransom was likely paid, but cautioned, quote, payment does not end that threat. Well, new data shows Americans' household debt has now reached an all-time high. A report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found U.S. household debt, including mortgages, credit cards, auto, and student loans, has reached $18.8 trillion in the first 3 months of the year. According to the report, the increase's overall debt was reportedly driven by higher balances on mortgages and auto loans. The Federal Reserve found that while student loan debt slightly decreased to $1.66 million, many borrowers are falling behind on payments, with more than 10% of student loan balances past due. Credit card debt also dipped by $25 million during the first quarter of the year, with outstanding balances at $1.25 trillion. The New York Fed says that while Americans' overall credit is, quote, stable, there are weaknesses among younger consumers and lower-income households. The record high number comes amid rising inflation as prices rose 3.8% in April compared to earlier in the year. Well, now to Michigan and a new warning about scammers getting more sophisticated trying to steal your money. ABC's Hannah Battah once again with that story.
The woman in this story wants to hide her identity, but she's sharing just how easy it was to be convinced to hand over nearly all her life savings. She told our station in Grand Rapids it started with a pop-up on her iPad.
It said, call immediately. Call Apple. So I did, not knowing. And then that's when he said that there's illegal stuff going on your phone.
The person on the other end of the phone claimed to be Mark Gray, a top official at the Federal Trade Commission, who said her identity was being used by drug smugglers to buy cars and launder money.
To get my name cleared, I would have to take everything out of my accounts.
The scammers used urgency and some key words to get her to comply.
That's what these scammers rely on, is urgency, fear, confusion.
She pulled out $170,000 from one bank and $60,000 from another. The scammers, 4 separate times, sent someone to her house to pick up the cash inside these boxes from the bank. During each pickup, the man impersonating the Federal Trade Commission official was on the phone with her.
So what we're seeing is the fraudsters are actually directly coaching, right, the victims of these scams to say those different scenarios to actually bypass our different processes and controls that we have here at the bank.
The fraudsters even made her sign a non-disclosure agreement. Hannah Battah, ABC News, New York.
Well, coming up on the second half of the newscast, Ralph Lauren is helping to celebrate America's 250th birthday with some exclusive stamps. This and more as Good Morning Maine continues.
This morning on Good Morning America, Bobby Flay's cooking things up.
Good morning, America.
And this week, Lisa Ann Walter is here. Plus,
can this be funny?
We're taking you behind the scenes of Rivals. What will they reveal? This week on Good Morning America.
Who has the best kept secret in Penobscot County?
We do!
Welcome to Maple Lane Farms, a 5th-generation family farm that's committed to providing you with the best quality products. Our farm-raised local and sustainable meat is flash frozen to lock in the freshness and natural flavors. Experience the top-notch quality of our meat that's naturally raised without any antibiotics or hormones. Get the best of both worlds, quality and affordability. Try Maple Lane Farms today, the candy store for the carnivore.
Here at Twin City Tire and Service, you will be working with industry professionals. We have ASE certified master technicians and certified tire and lube technicians. If we need your vehicle for a duration of time, we offer a complimentary shuttle service and can even offer a loaner vehicle. Being a client at Twin City Tire and Service means that we will treat you right. This includes a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on mechanical repairs. We also provide you with 1 year of complimentary roadside assistance. Come see us today at Twin City Tire and Service in Brewer.
Think you know Robert Charles? Think again. While President Trump was crushing the woke left, DC insider Bob Charles was cashing in, making millions holding lucrative contracts with the woke DEI Never Trump Obama administration. Bob Charles, looking the other way, abandoning the MAGA movement, working for liberal DEI-loving Democrats, failing President Trump. Anything for a buck chuck can't be trusted. Trump traitor Robert Charles, woke, radical, wrong. Just too liberal for Maine.
Next Jeopardy! After a mad sprint to a 5th win,
he is headed to the Tournament of Champions.
Can this runner stay ahead of the pack?
How big do you want to risk?
Next Jeopardy!
Only on ABC 7.
You're watching ABC 7 Bangor.
April showers have brought Mayflowers and some more showers here in Maine, as well as caused grass on lawns nationwide to kick into gear after the winter season. And as it keeps growing, some people may be getting ready to trim it down if they haven't already. But before a mower makes its way onto your yard, landscaping and agricultural experts are sharing tips which could help get you a green thumb and a healthier lawn. Fox News' Kevin Uretsky reports.
As lawns across the country keep growing greener this spring, landscaping experts say there's plenty people should keep in mind before getting ready to mow.
We're looking to have you maintain your lawn somewhere between 2.5 inches and 3 inches.
Determining the actual height of your grass can help prevent it from being cut too short.
You don't have to have a fancy device like this, but you can buy these online. This is called the Turf Check 2.
Keeping grass at recommended levels helps the roots grow deeper, maintain soil moisture, and can help yards toughen up ahead of summer's heat. Turfgrass scientist and Purdue University professor Kel Bigelow explains an industry trick called the 1/3 rule, which can help.
You don't want to mow off more than 1/3 of the leaf blade in any one single mowing. Okay, so if you're mowing, say, at 3 inches, you can allow it to grow to 4.5 inches, and that's going to be most healthy.
Cutting grass too short can stress it out and make it more susceptible to things like drought and insects. Meanwhile, it's important to keep mower blades sharp because dull ones can prove harmful.
You should be starting with a very sharp edge, and then probably within the first month, swap out the dull blade.
And when it comes to applying fertilizer to your lawn this season, experts recommend a light hand.
In general, if we can feed a lawn about 3 times a year, that's going to be best. As far as the spring feedings, is be very, very careful with how much you put out, because this is naturally a time of year that plants are actively growing. And feeding leads to growth, and growth leads to more mowing.
Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
Now let's turn things right back over to meteorologist Devin Biggs.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Happy Wednesday. Your first weather forecast brought to you by Rogan's Memorials. Give the gift of comfort through thoughtful planning with locations in Bangor, Bucksport, and Lincoln. Alrighty, here we go. We have frost advisories and even some freeze warnings across the state, and that will last until later on this morning at around 9 a.m. Even small craft advisories along the coast as well. Meanwhile, as we do move forward this morning, we are watching some clouds that are moving in from the southwest and going toward the north and east with another area of low pressure that is currently on the way. And this will give us some opportunities for rain showers, but we will have to wait until the afternoon period for that to move in. And there it is right there tracking off towards the east at this moment in time. Meanwhile, moving forward today, Futurecast watching the clouds approaching. There is the rain this afternoon and even some rain showers lingering into the evening, some breaks at times, and we'll be watching for more rain as we head towards your Thursday. As for the gusty winds, again, we're going to be watching for gusts up to around 20 miles per hour. And again, those gusty winds continuing into the evening period too. Meanwhile, your hourly forecast moving forward, again, watching for clouds, afternoon chances for rain showers, temperatures in the 60s. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Janessa?
Alrighty, thank you, Devin. Now for the latest on what's happening in Hollywood, here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
What can you do? Dare to be stupid.
Weird Al Yankovic is ready to take a bite out of Broadway. The comic parody musician behind such hits as Eat It and Like a Surgeon is working to bring his 4-decade-long song catalog to the Great White Way. Dare to be Stupid, the Weird Al musical, is now in development.
An evil, ancient, and powerful has returned.
Lord of the Rings fans rejoice. Amazon has announced the return of The Rings of Power. Season 3 of the series will drop on Prime Video on November 11th. The Grammy Awards will be held on February 7th of next year. Disney and the Recording Academy say the nominations will be announced on November 16th. For the first time ever, music's biggest night will be simulcast on ABC, Disney Plus, and Hulu. The awards will be handed out in Los Angeles. Disney is the parent company of ABC News. And happy birthday to Grammy winner Stevie Wonder, who is 76 today. That's what's happening in Hollywood. Melissa Adon, ABC News.
Still to come here this morning, Jack Webb with sports. Don't go away.
Hank's Husqvarna is your trusted full-line Husqvarna dealer, offering you everything you need for your outdoor projects. From high-performance lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers to chainsaws, trimmers, battery-powered and powerful snow blowers, we have just what you need. Every piece of equipment is fully set up, serviced, and ready for use by our certified Husqvarna technician. And all sales are backed by our in-house Husqvarna warranty. For parts, service, or new equipment sales, make your way to Hank's Husqvarna in Carmel or Newport.
We still can't agree on how to pronounce Costas.
It's Costas.
One thing we can agree on is the delicious American, Italian, and Greek food made from scratch. And that cozy fireplace room is perfect for a night out.
Yeah, but the back bar is so much fun. Trivia, name that tune, big screen TVs, and of course the same great food.
Welcome to Costas! Welcome to Costas!
However you say it, head to KOSTA' Restaurant and Bar today.
Hey Red Sox fans, you've got to play You Pick 'em Red Sox at foxbangor.com. Local weekly winners receive prizes from Chase's Family Restaurant in Bangor or from Chick-fil-A. Register now at foxbangor.com. You Pick 'em Red Sox is sponsored by Seasons Grill and Lounge on Main Street in Bangor, Twin City Tile, State Street in Brewer, Patrick's Pressure Washing and Sandblasting, and Bogies on Stillwater Avenue in Bangor.
ABC 7 and Fox 22's Jack Webb named Maine's Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sports Media Association.
Welcome back in, folks. The Husson baseball team is fresh off their North Atlantic Conference title win and are now gearing up for the NCAA tournament this week. Our Max Sturm has a story.
The Husson University Eagles are just days removed from their 7th consecutive North Atlantic Conference title.
Winning those big games really never gets old.
Winning championships is not only the goal, it has become the expectation.
Obviously, I know there's been a standard here for quite some time, and that goes before me. And obviously, you know, the senior class right now just came in and did a great job of setting the tone right away, especially for a large freshman class that we had.
Instilling a championship culture year after year goes deeper than just the play on the field.
From top to bottom, it's really a group effort. Even the guys, you know, that might not be in the game, they're cheering hard on the side, you know, helping us in between innings, getting the guys loose, you know, always just staying ready for when their number's called.
A team's standard and mindset are deprived from its leaders and those who came beforehand.
This senior class has been here for the past 4 years, obviously, and they've won 4 straight conference championships. And it goes much before them. That senior class from last year did a great job of it, obviously, with winning 5 straight conference championships. And really, that standard has been here for even well before these guys have been here.
I was just able to learn from the guys before me. I grew up local guy right here in Bangor, so I saw the program kind of on its way up. And I had great leaders in front of me, Kobe Rogerson, Jackson Curtis, Tanner Evans, like other local guys that I could really build after.
Another conference title means yet another trip to the NCAA tournament.
It's awesome, super fast pace, you know, some of the best baseball you'll see around, you know, at any level.
We're super excited, and obviously the standard now is to win games at a regional.
The Eagles will face number 9 Endicott College on Friday, and they're treating it like any other game on their schedule.
We don't really care about who we play against. We just know, you know, we got to take care of business on our side of things and handle the things that we need to take care of, and, you know, we're pretty confident heading into this.
In Bangor, Max Sturm, ABC 7 and Fox 22 Sports.
Thank you for that, Max. We'll shift gears to hockey as the Maine Mariners and Wheeling Nailers will face off in Game 4 of their best-of-7 North Division Finals on Tuesday night at the Cross Insurance Arena. The Nailers going into Tuesday were leading 2-1. The Mariners climbed back in the series on Monday night thanks to a hard-fought 6-3 win. Mariners opening up a 3-0 lead early in the first period and never looked back. It was a total team effort. Now a critical Game 4 was next, and a chance to tie the series at 2 apiece.
Very critical. I mean, we don't want to go down 3-1. We just got to play our game, and, you know, I think good things will happen. Yeah, we're looking to even up the series and, you know, have an extra game here as well.
Every game from here on out to Game 7 is how we're looking at it. So just coming out, playing physical, and playing as a team and staying connected should help us get the win tonight.
The two teams facing off in Game 4 down at the Cross Insurance Arena early in the first. Mariners on the attack. Jacob Hudson with a beautiful pass to Mac Andreeff for the score. Mariners on top 1-0. Still in the first. Nailers looking for the equalizer, but look at the sequence of saves from Luke Cavanali. Still 1-0 Mariners after that. Late in the period, Nailers on the power play. Look at the great passing here. Ryan McAllister to Braden Edwards for the beautiful redirect, and we're tied at 1 after 1. Second period now, great defense here from Zach Moscati, who just gets a stick on McAllister, possibly saving a goal there. Late in the period, Wheeling's Zach Undral breaks in to only get robbed by Luke Cavanali. What a glove save. It was tied at 1 after regulation, on to overtime, and in double OT, the Mariners won to tie the series at 2 games apiece. Game 5 will be Wednesday night down in Portland. We'll finish locally where the Herman baseball team hosted John Bapst on Tuesday afternoon. Boudreaux on the mound for Bapst. Fowler for Herman. We pick it up in the 4th. Colby Haggerty bloops one into shallow left, but Bapst can't capitalize in that frame. On the early next inning, early bottom of the frame now, Mason Kinney slaps one into center field to get the inning started for the Hawks. 2 batters later, Eli Cormier gets one by the shortstop as Kinney rounds third and heads home to make it 1-0 Hawks. To the 6th, still 1-0 runner on third for Herman. They're looking for more, but the insurance run is denied by Aiden Ouellette, who makes a diving catch to end the inning. A web gem there. Bapst trying to rally in the 7th now, but it's a routine ground ball to Josh Pangberg, who makes the play and ends the game. Herman wins by a score of 1-0. That is all the time we have for sports. Be right back after the break.
Maine's premier community radio station, Star 97.7. Locally owned and operated for over 20 years with Paul and Mike in the morning, local weather with Steve McKay, and Michael W. Hale in the afternoon. Star 97.7.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
Don't know what I'm doing. What's a manometer? Man-eater. Manometer. Let's do this. Help! Send someone. I can't do this anymore. Is it supposed to make that noise?
Definitely not, but we can fix it.
Okay.
Maine's premier community radio station, Star 97.7. Locally owned and operated for over 20 years with Paul and Mike in the morning, local weather with Steve McKay, and Michael W. Hale in the afternoon. Star 97.7.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, 50 years ago, Schoolhouse Rock helped children of all ages celebrate the nation's bicentennial, and now one of America's most iconic designers is helping to put his own spin on the nation's semi-quincentennial. Here's ABC's Sophie Flay.
The American flag has been a signature of Ralph Lauren's style for decades. Now, as the nation prepares to mark America's 250th birthday, he's partnering with the U.S. Postal Service to put that iconic look on a new series of stamps.
The idea of our stamp series is to celebrate everything that makes America what America is.
The Postal Service, founded by Benjamin Franklin, actually predates the Declaration of Independence, connecting Americans since the very beginning. Even Abraham Lincoln once served as a postmaster. The collaboration began in 2025 with the capsule collection, Ralph Lauren reimagining the classic postal uniform. His son, David Lauren, says the inspiration came from everyday Americans.
In many ways, the way they dress and the way they are part of our culture is overlooked by a lot of people. But my father saw beauty and romance in real people, the real workers, the people who made America, America.
Ralph Lauren has always been about timeless classic style, and so is the Postal Service.
Now, that American story is making its way onto commemorative stamps. The designs feature classic images long associated with the Ralph Lauren world. Baseballs, horses, vintage cars, and the Empire State Building. where a kid from the Bronx first built his fashion empire. For 60 years, Ralph Lauren has told stories through American style. The Postal Service has been delivering American stories even longer. And with these stamps, they hope people will pick up a pen, put words on paper, and keep sharing stories of their own.
He's made stamps that are at once beautiful, but also somehow deeply familiar to everyone, in just the right balance that you'll feel like this is something that speaks to you and to everyone.
Sophie Flay, ABC News, New York.
Well, now here's meteorologist Devin Biggs with our full weather forecast.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Your full weather forecast brought to you by Rogan's Memorials. Give the gift of comfort through thoughtful planning with locations in Bangor, Bucksport, and Lincoln. Alrighty, here we go. Advisories posted. We have a frost advisory and even a freeze warning up across the state. Both of these will be dropping this morning. Hopefully, you've been protecting your flowers across parts of the state, as even though we're in growing season in some areas, definitely continuing to remain cold, at least as we enter spring. Wave heights are quiet for now, but we are going to be watching for increasing surf with some gusty winds, hence why we do have some small crab advisories that are in effect. Meanwhile, we are watching clouds approaching from the south and west and going towards the north and even to the east, as we are going to be watching for rain chances with this area low pressure moving in our direction. We are going to wait until the afternoon period for these to kind of move in and give us the rain chances again this afternoon into the evening period. So here's Futurecast right here. Again, we are going to be watching for the rain chances again during the afternoon period. The winds will be picking up too, and rain chances continuing into the overnight. Notice we will have some dry hours too, sprinkles and rain showers, and even through parts of Thursday, again, rain showers, locally heavy downpours possible as we head towards Thursday night and parts of your Friday. Notice it kind of stalls out in some places too, so again, locally heavy downpours, perhaps some ponding and maybe perhaps some flash flooding, not out of the question in a few spots too. I'm going to run this through parts of Saturday. That's when this will back off, and notice where the heaviest rainfall will be. It's in drought-stricken areas, but this could be too much in a short amount of time, so be ready for that. Lesser amounts of rain as you head further off towards the east. So for today, here's what we're looking at. So mostly cloudy, afternoon rain showers with highs in the low 60s, and again, that south wind at around 25 miles per hour. Later on tonight, we have mid-40s, rain early, then clouds and some fog too, maybe a few sprinkles still or light showers, and that south wind at around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Higher gusts cannot be ruled out. Low 60s for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, some more rain showers, southeast wind at around 25 miles per hour. Already moving forward, your extended forecast, rain chances continue Friday with highs in the low 60s, mostly sunny Saturday, that'll be nice, highs in the mid-70s. Partly cloudy Sunday, a chance for rain showers, highs remaining in the mid-70s.
You provide it all. There's no challenge you can't take on, because you've already taken on everything. You've gone above and beyond. It feels like you've brought them together. It feels like your home is taken care of. It feels like you're all at the top of your game. And with Fidium Fiber Internet, you are.
It feels like Fidium.
Honey, where's the countertop?
I sent it out to the granite shop this morning to be replaced.
Wow.
The quickest turnaround in the business, the Granite Shop in Sedgwick.
Who is the real Graham Plattner? He calls rural Mainers stupid and racist. Plattner says some Maine lobstermen are drug-addicted pieces of shit. He blames Maine's women for getting raped because he says they get up drunk. Graham Plattner even bragged about a Nazi tattoo on his chest. He calls it eminently reasonable. That's the real Graham Plattner. To be continued. Pine Tree Results Pack is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Let's go, ball in.
say she was a bad tenant. You say that he was a nasty landlord.
I started to see some things that really shocked me.
You can't talk to him. He's like, "Arr, arr," all the time.
Hot Bench. Wednesday at 3 on ABC 7.
Two musical heavyweights joined together for a special kind of duet. Former Black Sabbath bassist Terry Geezer Butler and pop star Debbie Gibson teaming up to help save dogs from medical experiments. The pair praising ongoing efforts to find new homes for roughly 1,500 beagles that were bought from a dog breeder and research facility Wriglin Farms in Wisconsin. Butler and Gibson spending time with the rescue beagles that were transported from the facility on Tuesday to the Humane Society, 1 month after Washington, D.C. Base Center for a Human Economic and the Big Dog Ranch Rescue in Florida struck a deal to buy the dogs from Wriglin Farms.
It was so profound to be able to hold each of these dogs in our arms and to be able to assure them that their new life is starting and that they were going on a grand adventure now. And I think a lot of people in the world right now feel helpless. It's chaotic times. And this is something people can do. People can take one voiceless being at a time and give them their dignity back.
It's just heartbreaking to see that animals that I've grown up with and that have been my best friend are treated like this. And thank God this is a historical day for, I think it's 1,500 beagles now coming out of these places.
Numerous groups are MPW working to move the dogs from Wriglin to facilities where they can get veterinarian care and then be moved to shelters across the country before they are put up for adoption. Well, that's all the time that we have left for this hour, but you can join us for the second hour of Good Morning Maine. That's next on Fox 22. We hope you have a great day.
Tired of being customer 45978? Yeah, we would be too. Speed means fast uploads, no lag, and zero buffering. But it also means calling you back, showing up on time, and treating you like a person, not a problem. So whether you're working, streaming, gaming, or all three, it is time to make the switch to a provider that actually tries. Go NetSpeed. Service isn't dead. It just moved local.
You're getting ripped off. Criminals overbill Maine Care. They even charge for fake services, and Janet Mills let it happen. I'm Jonathan Bush. I've built systems that stopped fraud and abuse and saved customers millions. As governor, I'll audit every program and reduce that waste and fraud. Politicians and lobbyists don't have what it takes to clean up this corruption, but I do. I'm Jonathan Bush. Let's shake up Augusta.
John Brown first opened his own appliance store in Ellsworth in 1976. With his gift of storytelling, a strong work ethic, and a philosophy of putting others first, John and his wife and children saw the business prosper and grow. Today's third and fourth generation of family and their entire team continue to follow the example set by their grandparents and parents. Brown Appliance and Mattress, High Street, Ellsworth, a family tradition of quality, value, and customer service that always puts you first.
All this week,
we are obsessed, and the internet is too.
Drew's hanging with the most viral it boys in Hollywood.
Sexy, hot, yummy.
Dylan O'Brien.
He is all the things.
Tom Blythe.
I'm having a hot flash, Tom.
Yeah, get comfy.
Tyreek Withers.
This is romance, people.
Leo Woodall.
This is wild.
And Jeremy Pope.
The internet is calling you their boyfriend.
weekdays at 11 on Fox 22.
Good Morning Maine on WFVX, Fox 22. From the Great Northwoods to the Rockbound Coast and streaming live in HD worldwide at foxbangor.com. More people choose Good Morning Maine.
Hello everyone. Today on Good Morning Maine, the state of Maine is mourning the loss of Game Warden Josh Tibbetts after he died in a plane crash. We're now learning more about what happened. Plus, state officials question the validity of a petition and those involved. We'll have the details coming up. And Bangor city councilors voted to ban storing belongings on city sidewalks. We'll have the latest on that ahead. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Maine. I'm Janessa Bishop. Craig Colson is off for the day. We'll have those stories and much more coming up. And as always, we thank you for joining us. Today looks like a cloudy day with temperatures in the 60s. Let's start off this morning by getting a first check of our forecast. Devin Biggs joins us now.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Happy